Hello and welcome. My name's Peter. I'm the solo developer behind Growlery Games, and it's been a couple of months since I started working on Growlery's second game, which right now is called Blood Builder. It's a working title, but it's slowly becoming the official title. Nothing better's come along yet. And this video is going to encapsulate the design phase and prototype for that game. So let's get to it. So before we get into the process, what is the game? Blood Builder is a life sim, cozy-ish game along the lines of Stardew Valley and the Harvest Moon series that came before that or inspired that. Graveyard Keeper is probably the most similar game that's been released and that I'm aware of and have played for what I'm going for. It still has the same, starting with your dumpy little, whatever it is in Graveyard Keeper, it's the graveyard. Stardew Valley, it's in Harvest Moon, is generally the farm. But you start off with this dumpy little property, and then you craft and you collect, and you gather materials and you craft and you collect things. Sometimes you build up relationship with people in town and build something significantly better by the end of the game. With Graveyard Keeper, there was an actual end to the game. Harvest Moon, the ones I remember, it's a time limit. Stardew Valley, thankfully, didn't end the game at the time limit, but you get a grade for what you had accomplished in that amount of time. And the reason I say Graveyard Keeper is the most similar to Blood Builder is because it's got a darker facade and theme to it. In Blood Builder, you're a fledgling vampire that has been cast out of Dracula's court for breaking vampire laws, basically. And in order to get back into his good graces, you need to rebuild his castle in Romania along with a roadside inn. And to do that, you need to gather resources. So you'll be fishing and mining and chopping wood. But you'll also be doing a little bit of gardening to operate and improve the inn to attract human guests so that some of them will end up staying and sleeping in the inn. And so you can harvest their blood for yourself because you're a vampire, and to serve to vampire patrons that are travelers coming through. And that's how you increase your reputation with vampire society. So you're gathering money and resources to build restore the castle, and also upgrading this inn so that it will make that whole process easier on yourself. There'll be some other things in the mix. There'll be some slight relationship type stuff, not any romance, but some friendship type things with a few characters. But you're a vampire, so you're not as social as you might be in other games. But that's the core of the game, is gathering resources, getting money to restore the castle, and a big part of that is revitalizing this inn to harvest blood from human guests to then serve to the vampire guests. There is a game that it isn't out yet, but they just released their demo for the Next Fest that just happened in June. So I just wanted to acknowledge it and give it a shout out. It's Vampire Rancher. I haven't played it yet. It looks interesting. There are a lot of obviously shared thematic things between Blood Builder and that game, but a lot of the gameplay is also different. But if Blood Builder sounds interesting to you, check out Vampire Rancher, and hopefully that does well, because Blood Builder won't be out for quite some time, and if Vampire Rancher does well, that could bode well for me as well. But yeah, different but similar. Check it out, and that's what Blood Builder is going to be. So why this game? That's the beginning of the design process, right? Like, what am I going to make, and why? And for this game, came down to a few things. One, I love vampires, so I wanted to do a game with vampires. I snuck a vampire into my last game. One of the characters was hinted towards being a vampire, but wasn't necessarily portrayed as one. I like the crafting sim and like farm sim type games like Stardew Valley and Graveyard Keeper and Harvest Moon series, like I mentioned. Most importantly, I wanted to find a genre, or at least I'm searching for. I don't know that this will like 100% be it, but I'm trying to find a genre or like a cluster of mechanics that are shared across a couple of similar genres that I can focus on for the studio moving forward, so I can start reusing code and assets to cut down on development time and or build on the complexity of the games that I'm making. And my last game was a roguelike deck builder, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. I thought it had a unique twist with the extraction mechanic, where you could leave the mine or the dungeon, right, ahead of during the run, so that you could keep everything and not risk dying and losing most or all of your progression, and build yourself up and come back in stronger and hopefully get through deeper. But it became clear that it's not a genre that I want to touch again for a while. So I'm hoping this is something I could foresee myself doing over and over again, right? Getting more complex, finding new twists to add in. But that's why I chose this genre. And typically, this sort of crafty sim or the farm sim type genre does fairly well on Steam. Right? I didn't want to pick a genre that bombs. I wanted to pick something that has a sizable audience, and most of the games tend to do all right or pretty well. So that's why this game. So once I have my initial idea, the next step for starting the design process is I make a short high concept document. And the reason being, if I can't create a compelling reason in 1 to 3 pages to pursue this game idea, then it's not worth it. Sometimes I'll do a couple or a few different games. I'll make a few high concept, they're not pitches because it's just basically to myself, but pitches, and I'll pick the best one. I did that when I did Risk and Riches. For this game, for Blood Builder, I already pretty much knew what I wanted to do, but I sat down and made the high concept document just to make sure that there was enough there. And the things I include in the high concept document are a 1 to 2 paragraph pitch, a list of key features, the target audience and platform, and a list of some similar games that would be considered competition. I don't view them necessarily as actual competition, but they're good for referencing to get some ideas from. And also for some initial marketing research, right? If the games that are most similar to the one I want to make are performing awful, then it's not worth making that game, right? I want to make a game where the similar games are doing well. The high concept document I use is based on a template from a game design book by Andrew Rawlings and Ernest Adams. And if I get through that phase and I'm still feeling good, then I'll move on to make a full game design document. I wouldn't necessarily call it a Bible because it's more detailed, but since it's still just me, it's not super in depth. But I sit down for Blood Builder. It was like 20 pages. It's enough to start to actually flesh out some of the systems, the core concept of the game, so that I write like where are the main areas, who are the main characters, What are you doing? How do you do it? What's the objective for the player, and all that, right? Just to get to refine a lot of the initial concepts. And by sitting down and doing that, even though I know I'm going to abandon it because it is just me. If I was in a team, I would keep it up to date so that, you know, we can all reference it and have that shared vision, especially for larger teams, right? It's important to have something that people can go to reference and know and be on the same page with everybody else. But since it's just me, I go through this process and write it out, because a lot of times just thinking about it and putting it down on paper, I can start to identify the easy things that aren't going to work, or maybe a way to improve something. It's still a valuable step to go through as a solo developer. And even though it's not kept up to date, I do come back to it. I did in Risk and Riches, and I did some other projects before that too, but I did come back to it in Risk and Riches just to make sure that I was staying with the core idea of what I set out to do, and it helped prevent scope creep. And so I find it very helpful. I know there's some folks that, you know, would stand by having a 1 to 2 page design document. It's not worth putting more time in than that. But for me, for my process, I don't think that's the case. I think 1 to 2 pages is proofing that the idea is worth pursuing, and then doing something a bit more fleshed out to help you massage that idea and pull out the things that clearly aren't going to work, and maybe find some ways to improve it as well. And for my design document, I also use a template. It's from Chris Taylor. But I've slowly started altering it to fit my own approach. But it's a good starting point if you're making your first game design doc, or just looking for like a better way to potentially organize your thoughts on it. Once I feel good with the design document, like it's solid for what my uses, then I'll move on to prototyping. I may do some like concept or mock-up type artwork for the design document to be able to visualize things, but I don't touch code. And the reason I don't touch code until the design document is done is because that's my comfort zone is the programming. And so once I start programming, that's where I'm going to want to stick there. So I know to help prevent that behavior, I don't do any coding until the design document is done. Then I started on the code. This is my second game working in Godot. Risk and Riches was the first, and so at this point, I know the basics. I feel fairly comfortable, pretty comfortable in the engine. But there are some things that I didn't utilize in Risk and Riches that Blood Builder needs, and so that's what my focus was on the initial prototype, was learning how to do them and proving that I could implement them for the core mechanics of the game. A couple of the big examples of that were the tile map layers, being able to place, remove, change the tiles on different layers. I didn't, while in the editor and gameplay, I didn't do tile maps in Risk and Riches at all. So this was all new to me. I know it conceptually. I've used tile maps in the past for custom engines, but I haven't used them in Godot. So I wanted to make sure that I could do everything that I would need to do, or that I could foresee I would need to do for Risk and Riches. Another thing that I had to play around a little bit with was Godot's animation tree, to swap between animations, in particular with like movement. So when I'm going in different directions, it would swap to the animation for that direction for like the walk. And because if I can do it with the walk, then I can also do it with attacking and swinging the pickaxe and all that, right? So I wanted to make sure that I could understand the animation tree and get it to function the way that I would want the game to work. I tried to dial in the color palette and resolution while I was doing the prototyping. The resolution, I am pretty confident, is going to be 640 by 360. Right, I'm going for a pixel art aesthetic, and with you play the game in full screen with 640 by 360. It looks good on an actual little 640 by 360 window. It's tiny, but the game looks good when blown up and has that pixel art aesthetic I want. And the color palette, I think I need some more work on. I'm just working with the one I came up with for now, but I feel like I'm gonna have to revisit it. I tried to do one that only had 64 colors, but I'm just, as I've been going, I've already had to start like creating some new colors for some shading and things like that. So I think I need to bump that up. Most things came together pretty quickly. They were crude. It was a prototype, but I was able to figure it out and prove they would work. I think the whole prototyping phase took me about 6 weeks to do everything. Just researching how to do a particular mechanic in the engine and then implementing it and expanding on it a little bit to get it closer to what I'd like it to look like. And none of it looks pretty because the visuals weren't the focus. The focus was that the underlying code and mechanics and systems were working, and that I could prove that I could do it and expand on it. But you could run around, collect resources, talk to NPCs, clean up these little dirt spots. There was just a generic enemy I made, and you could fight him. He would damage you, and you would damage and kill him. You could farm. You could use crafting tables, and you could feed from an NPC that was sleeping. It was in a constant sleep state, so I didn't have too much going on as far as state machines, but I had a NPC that would just walk back and forth, and you could talk to him, and then there was a NPC that was just constantly sleeping, and you could feed from him. I even had a NPC that getting ready for what the tavern's going to be like, an NPC that would come and he'd seek out a stool and sit on the stool. I need to improve the pathing and stuff for that, but he would go to the stool and order something off the menu, which was really just the items available in a particular chest. So the idea being, the way that the inn might work is the patrons come in and they order based off of what's available, and you do that by putting it into some sort of special inventory, the foods and the drinks and stuff like that. And that was all working. The thing that took the most time was the animations. And it was because I was learning about Godot's animation tree, and also just having to do the 8 different directions. Figuring that out took probably the most amount of time. It wasn't a crazy amount of time, but that was a good chunk of the time I spent on the prototype. Initially it was 8 directions. I did end up, when I started to move on to the alpha, which I'll get to in a second, and that's what I'm going to end the video with. I went from 8 directions down to 4, and the reason for that, I had the 8 directions working, but 8 directions means double the amount of animations. And art not being my strong suit, I wanted to figure out how to reduce the load on the assets. And That might sound like I mean, it's a smart reason not to do that, but some of you might be thinking, oh, that's lazy. But looking at similar games like Stardew Valley and Graveyard Keeper, they don't have 8 directions, they have 4 directions. And when you're running on a diagonal, you're facing to the sides, you're aligned horizontally. Since it was already kind of baked into the genre, and it made sense on limiting the amount of assets that would be needed, I cut the 4 diagonals and just stay with the 4 east, west, north, south kind of directions for the animations. So after that 5 to 6 weeks, I finished the prototyping and creating a small test scene where you could accomplish the majority of the anticipated features and mechanics. It looked awful, and some things were incomplete, right, or oversimplified, but I felt good that I had proven I could implement the core mechanics of the game that were going to be necessary. So I used the prototype as a guide and began working on the first alpha build for the game. And prototype versus alpha versus beta, the different people, different studios and different people have different approaches. For me, the prototyping is just, can I do it? It's research and can I do it? And then the alpha is what I'm planning on actually presenting to someone. It's going to be a playable, iteration of the game. And so for the first phase of the alpha, I started that up already about a week and a half ago. I haven't been able to touch it for a couple of days because I've been doing some other things for the studio, like recording this video and figuring something out with my website and mailing list. But the alpha is based off the prototype, and the reason I say it's based off the prototype is because this time around I am not using the code and the scenes from the prototype. I did that with Risk and Riches, and it ended up being a problem a little way, not too far in, but a good ways into development. I had to do a major refactor just to clean up how some of the different systems were interacting with each other, and to make the whole thing readable and more extendable. And so to avoid that, I'm starting the alpha from scratch, but looking at the prototype, figuring out where can I improve on what I've been doing to hopefully reduce the need to refactor, especially any major system refactors. Right? I'm sure I'm gonna touch some things up, find out, hey, if I do it this way, I can remove this whole function or cut down on the amount of code necessary. But that's why I'm starting from sort of scratch, is to try and reduce the need for that. For the alpha, the biggest thing I've done so far, and again the thing that took the longest, is the animations. And the reason for that, I now only have the 4 directions, but I've got some. I have walk. I have a placeholder idle that doesn't. The guy just blinks. But I have an idle. It's not in the prototype. It's not in the alpha right now. That is on the screen. But I have him swinging the tool, a tool overhead, whether it be the axe or the pickaxe. Those animations are done, but I wanted character customization, and not only for the reason of allowing the player to customize the character, which was important to me. But also because I can then use the generic pieces, right? So like the basic shirt or the basic pants, and swap them around to create the patrons. And so instead of making 4 or 6 or a dozen different patrons that come in, right, I can just swap some assets around and create new characters for the generic patrons that will be coming in and out of the inn. But for that system, I needed to make different layers for the clothing and some of the body parts. And so there's a whole bunch of layers on a single character, and they all have to be animated, or most of them do, because sometimes they don't move in a particular animation. But right, like if somebody is, if the player's swinging the axe, right, their arms move. Generally, there's some movement in the head and the body, and that means that the shirt they're wearing needs to move. And so, for right now, there's only 2 options. So there's like 2 different shirts, but right, imagine I have 20 different shirts that the player can use. All 20 of them need to be animated to move with the body when it's doing a particular action. And so all of that is done. Those animations exist, and so I put in the effort and time now to get it to basically be done. Like, it doesn't look, it's not polished, but at this point, all I have to do is update the animations in Sprite, right, the actual sprites, and then just re-import it into the game, and it'll make it look cleaner, right? Like, that's what my polish phase is going to look like. I won't necessarily need to do a lot of work with the animation itself in the engine. In the engine, the animations are pretty much done. So it's just improving the actual sprite and then re-importing it into the engine. That has taken me the longest amount of time out of the roughly week and a half or so that I've been working on the alpha. I also was able to start working on the tile maps, and again, the art isn't final, all right, it looks rough, but getting it to the point where when it comes to polishing it more for the beta and for the final release, all I should really need to do is go back and update the sprites themselves and re-import it. I'm getting actual systems and code that manage those things as fleshed out and complete now, so that I won't have to come back to them, or if I do, it'll be for very little. My next focus is going to be on the trees and rocks and some ores, and like a couple of variation of like a bush or something, where you can collect the resources. I shown in the prototype how to do it. I know how to do it, but I'm gonna make some nicer looking trees and rocks and ores, and make all the ones that I can foresee are gonna be in the game, and have them destructible again, and they drop the resources that you can collect. That's the next part of the alpha I want to do. I would hope to get it done by the end of this week, but I think because of the last couple of days, how I haven't really been able to touch the game itself. I've been doing some other things. They're important things that I needed to get to, but it is causing a delay in development. I think I'm probably gonna be working on those into early to mid next week, which isn't too bad, but right, those types of delays can compound, so I got to be on top of it and hopefully make up for that lost time somewhere else. And that's what I've got for this one. Before I close things up here, though, I did want to just thank everybody who has subscribed and been engaging with my videos recently, especially the last couple. This last video I did pushed me past 50, and then actually pushed me past 60 subscribers. 50 was the first milestone I had set for myself. So it's nice that I'm not just talking into the void. There are some people who are enjoying and engaging with the videos. But if you're new around here, the YouTube channel is very secondary for me. I do typically 1 to 2 videos, usually 1 a month, just documenting my journey of getting the studio up and running and whatever game I'm working on. For the foreseeable future, we'll probably be talking about Blood Builder quite a bit since it's the new game. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you.